Today we are going to study Gantt charts. Gantt charts are an extremely useful tool in scheduling. So basically, a Gantt chart is a way for us to track processes, resources, and the nice thing about Gantt chart is it's really centered around time. So we want to know when actions should occur, so we'll have everything organized that way, how long an action should take to complete, how long the process will take to complete, so process is a group of tasks, and then who is responsible for the task. So think about an automobile assembly line. Imagine what would happen if the tires were done properly or weren't scheduled properly. What if on an assembly line one person finishes their job in half the time that it takes the person after them to complete? That person's just going to be sitting around waiting for something to do. So a Gantt chart is really good at figuring out exactly how long things will take, and then you decide, okay, this person has more to do in a scheduled amount of time, so you can give him more tasks to do. So is anyone, just show of hands, anyone ever even heard of a Gantt chart besides just us talking earlier today? All right, so extremely powerful tool. What's that? Is it dangerous? It's dangerously effective. So I want you to think a moment about a project that you have worked on in the past as a group. Maybe it was, you and your siblings painted your house, or yeah, there you go. That's a perfect one. Building a chicken coop. I like that a lot. So if it was something you did as a group, think about, well, was everybody really working hard and efficiently the whole time? Were some people waiting? Somebody realized, oh, we're out of nails, so everyone sat around while the other person drove to the hardware store and got nails. So as you start to think about it, you realize, well, yeah, a little bit of planning can actually save a whole lot of time, because while one person goes to the store for an hour to get the nails, and you got 4 people sitting in the backyard, nothing to do for an hour, you've actually just lost 4 hours of manpower that were wasted. Yeah, so 4 hours, and that's a lot of time, just because somebody messed up on not planning to have enough nails. So other group projects, if you've done any sort of community service projects. All of you are required to do community service stuff for work. So even something as simple as picking up trash on the beach, or maybe you cooked food for somebody. Just anything that you did with a large group of people, and preferably something that you actually had an end, what they call deliverable. There was something at the end, a tangible object or something that you built. So for example, at the end of your project, you had a working chicken coop, or hopefully you had a working chicken coop.
I didn't finish it.
You didn't never finish it. All right, so excellent example there.
Well, it was for right here. I was building it here.
Oh, okay. All right,
No,
so.
it was
She almost finished
freshman year.
All right. So this is a great example. So Edgar, freshman year, worked with a group of students here on campus to build a chicken coop. And school's an excellent example, because obviously school has a definitive ending time, which is first week of June. Everyone's going to go home. So if that chicken coop doesn't get finished by the first week of June, it's not going to get finished. So, so that's an excellent example. And again, this is where a Gantt chart is really going to come in handy. And perhaps we'll use that a little bit further to figure out exactly why the chicken coop project failed. So think about, for example, the chicken coop. Was it easy to split up the tasks for the project? So he said, okay, we're going to build a chicken coop. And it wasn't like everyone just started grabbing wood and a hammer and chicken wire. Hopefully somebody spent some time designing it. So no design.
No, we actually did.
Okay.
It was like a crappy drawing though.
So did you design as a group, or did one person design?
We chose the height and the height.
So everybody made a design, and then you voted on what you thought was the best design?
Yeah,
Okay.
give or take.
All right, all right.
You're smart, Aaron.
So then you decide on design, and then I assume the teacher supplied the materials, and then people had work to do. So did each person take a wall, or how did you sort of divide up that work? How did you decide who did what task for each project? You have to answer that now, but just think about that for a moment. And then did you have, so obviously you had a timeline in the sense that you had a date that you had to finish by, which was the end of school.
It was final.
All right, so final project.
It was for final.
So you knew you had to finish by that date, but did you have kind of work it backwards to say, well, in order for us to finish by this date, then we'll need to have done, built this and this and this, so many weeks prior, or we'd have to have it designed. The design would have to be finished by this date. We'd have to be able to have all the wood cut by this date. We'd have to have all the chicken wire, stapled by this date. So having key timelines and then knowing if you're on schedule is obviously key to actually making sure you finish on time. If you don't even know if you're on schedule or not, it's hard to know, if you need to focus, you need to work faster or slower or what. And then coordinate. So did you have somebody managing the project? Was there some project leader, or was everyone just...
Who was the teacher, Mr.
Yeah, okay. So theoretically, it was the teacher who was sort of coordinating all the tasks, deciding, okay, you cut the chicken wire, you staple the chicken wire.
Yeah, it was Mr. Bradley.
Okay.
Who's that?
All right.
Yeah.
And then was there any organization, did you have any charting that you used, or any list of tasks or anything that you used to manage the project?
What do you mean, like?
Just the process. So, yeah, it was at least written like, okay, this person was going to be responsible for this, or was there anything, sort of a plan on the project?
It was for guys, and then we were like, oh, you have to pick this, pick that.
Okay.
Yeah, she guessed.
And was it written, or was it just all verbal? You just talk about it? Okay. So everyone just kind of casually said, all right, well, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And then I'm beginning to see why this didn't finish on time. So when the final came around, you weren't done. Did you think, oh, I wish we would have done this differently?
We actually got a beat.
You got to be all right, well. But you didn't have a finished chicken coop, so obviously there's something that could have been improved, so you could have had a finished product on time. So just a little history of the Gantt chart. Came out in 1861 by Lawrence Gantt. He was a mechanical engineer, and he really wanted to develop a visual tool for scheduling time. And the Gantt chart is incredibly common today. If any of you do any kind of project planning in college or even management, odds are you're going to either talk specifically about a Gantt chart or something very similar to it. Some historical projects that used the Gantt chart was the Hoover Dam, one of the first major projects, and the entire interstate highway system also managed on Gantt charts. So Gantt charts used today in designing and engineering, so you'll see them on pretty much all construction sites, yep, construction projects. Manufacturing, so every Silicon Valley company uses Gantt charts in mapping out their project plan. So say, like I was involved with a project with Logitech. They make computer mice, so they're always coming out with newer and more exciting mice for computers. And so they'll come out with a whole Gantt chart that's going to map out their research and development, their prototyping, testing, reworking, pre-launch work, marketing, and then project launch will all be mapped out, and it'll be sometimes a year, 2 years, with hundreds and hundreds of people working on it all at the same time. And event organization is also, if you're planning a wedding, it's kind of nice to map out a Gantt chart so you have a really clear visual idea to say, okay, this can actually work. We're going to have our ceremony, we're going to have our photos, we're going to have our banquet, we're going to have it all mapped out. Yeah, sure.
Can you do that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
For your wedding?
We had a plan. I don't know if we necessarily used a Gantt chart, but I'm sure we had a schedule.
Here's a picture.
All right, so here's just kind of a rough drawing of what a Gantt chart looks like. And basically the way it works is you have your tasks is the first column. So say if this were our chicken coop, first task might be to design chicken coop. And then along the top here, we have a time frame. And this can be years. If you're doing a real long-term, you're maybe mapping out your life plan. So you're like, hey, I'm going to go to college, then I'm going to transfer to this university, then I'm going to start an internship or a residency, I'm going to do, buy a house. You can kind of map out your whole life that way. So maybe on the top here, it's done by years, shorter-term projects than that by months, weeks, days, hours, minutes. Sometimes, if I was going to do a Gantt chart on, say, brushing my teeth, I'd maybe have it mapped out into seconds. So there's or certainly like assembly line work, where they're always trying to shave off seconds to every task. They'll have it mapped out that way. So this one here, it's done by week. So you can see here, February, we have 2 weeks here scheduled to assigning teams. They'll spend 2 weeks to assigning teams. And then you'll notice the second task here, which is select the reverse engineering project. That's actually going to start while assigning the teams is still going on. So these projects here overlap. So that's critical to know because that means that this task isn't dependent on this task completing before it begins. So obviously we can't begin working with the team if the team hasn't been assigned yet. So I know that this task isn't directly related or dependent on this task being completed. This task will then go for about 3 weeks along with writing proposals, then making charts. So you can see on and on and on. There's all these tasks of how they all flow. And then you'll notice here there's a final report which is going to be written throughout the entire length of the project. So that's kind of the basis of what a Gantt chart looks like. And you can see it's really easy to look at this and you sort of intuitively are able to interpret how many tasks are going to be going on at the same time, when tasks will start in relation to other tasks. I also know that I'm starting on February 19th and I'm going to end in the end of the first week of May. So I'm able to really look at small pieces of the picture as well as easily interpret information about the larger scope of the project. And then also I can say, let's say right now it's March 8th and the teams haven't been assigned yet. I know that this task is running late. So you can just sort of imagine where today is, and then it's easy to determine if your project is on time or not. So if it's May 30th and we haven't yet purchased the wood for the chicken coop, you can plan on that project not finishing on time or at all because all of these tasks still have to be done. So you can see the real advantages of a Gantt chart. You'll know exactly how long projects can take. You see what order the tasks are to be completed. You can also easily identify tasks that are dependent. So if one task has to complete before another task can begin, I can't start building the chicken coop till the materials are purchased. So if there's a delay in that, then I can see that that's going to push my entire project. It's going to delay the entire project as well. So it's really easy to see things that are dependent on others. It's great for managing lots of people because that way you can really see how your entire project is moving forward, making sure everybody is meeting their responsibilities, getting their stuff done. And you can also look at something and realize, oh my gosh, this task here is taking a lot longer than we expected. this task finished early, so I'm going to pull resources or people from this task and move them on this other task. So you can make these small adjustments early and often to make sure your your project finishes on time. Some disadvantages of a Gantt chart is it can be confusing if you have really huge projects. Back before computers, they would put like big posters on the wall like what we have. That would be big long Gantt charts. And obviously if you had a lot of people involved, it could get really confusing being able to read these big huge charts. So instead, we're using computerized Gantt charts, which will just show us the information that we need to know. And it also doesn't show necessarily the size of the project or task relative to the other size. So if you have one task that's extremely complex and is going to take 100 people, and another task that's only going to take one person, even though both of them are only going to take a week, you can't really tell by looking at the chart that this one's going to require 100 people to complete on time, and this one will only take one. So you do need to combine Gantt charts with some other resource management to manage the effective varying tasks. So you can see here's our Gantt chart, and then when you have these little dotted lines, that indicates that today's date. So right now, according to this Gantt chart, it would mean that we're in the middle of June. And then these Gantt charts are a little bit more complex in that it shows me the task and it shows me what percentage of the task is already complete. So this task here is normally going to take, looks like about 10 months. Right now we're in June, but this red portion shows the amount of the task that's already complete. So that's maybe 70, 80% of the task is already complete.
So it's ahead?
Yes, I'm actually ahead of schedule on this task here. Development here, I can see I'm right on time. Research is totally complete, which is good. And then you see here this prototype production. Again, I'm ahead of schedule, but still have some work to do. So this is a nice, easy way for you to visually see the progress of each task as well, and know if you're on time or behind. And this is just another way of showing the total job versus work complete. So there's two different kinds of tasks. And so a task is basically any action or actual verb, something that you actually have to do to complete. Using like the chicken coop is what we call our deliverable. So that's the thing, the noun that you are producing, and then staple chicken wire to outside of coop would be one of the tasks related to that. So there's two kinds of tasks, sequential and parallel. So sequential is any task that is dependent on another task being completed. So going back to our chicken coop example, building the chicken coop is dependent on the task of purchasing the materials being done. So the materials has to be completed fully before the actual construction of the chicken coop can begin. So those two are sequential tasks or activities. This is also known as linear tasks. So they go back to back, one after the other. Then parallel activities or activities can actually be done at the same time. So they aren't dependent on other tasks to be done. So say building the steps to the chicken coop, a little ladder to the chicken coop, and building the base of the chicken coop can both be done separately. One person can be putting the little steps on a plank, nailing the steps to a plank, while the other person is building the frame of the chicken coop at the same time. So those are parallel activities. and they can be done at any stage typically as well. So those are non-dependent activities. Another one might be, take pictures of the event, or, advertising, chicken coops for sale. If your goal is to sell it, you're going to advertise selling it. You can start advertising at any time, saying we're going to have a chicken coop built enough for 8 chickens for sale for $150. All right, so our steps to creating a Gantt chart. The first thing you want to do is create a list of all your activities. So for chicken coop, I'm just going to start brainstorming everything that I have to do. So I got to buy chicken coop, I got to staple wire, I got to paint it, I got to research chicken coops, kind of research my design, then I actually have to design it. So I'm going to make a big long list of all the different tasks that I want to do for that. Once I have all my tasks, I'll typically number them in order, because our Gantt chart always starts with the task that we do first and then to the tasks that we do last. So put those in order. And then we'll use a piece of paper, graph paper or something. Did everyone get a Gantt chart? Okay. So use something like this, or we'll use an Excel spreadsheet, or next week we'll use the Redmine software to create your Gantt chart. But the next step is to really decide what you're going to have on the heading of your paper. So chicken coops, maybe you're going to break it down by day. Maybe you're going to, if you're only doing it by class period, then maybe you just do it by class period. And so you figure, okay, well now to the end of the year, we have 23 class periods. So I'm going to have 23 blocks along the top for each class period. If it's something that's maybe only 4 or 5 class periods, then maybe I'm going to break it up by hour of class period, something like that, so I can map out my tasks. And once you have your Gantt chart all created, then it's just a matter of monitoring the progress of your project. So making sure everything is done. You can start shading in areas as you complete your tasks. So then you start with your earliest start date. That's the beginning of your Gantt chart. And then you'll estimate the length of time it'll take to complete your task. So either it's just an estimation of how long, or it's a due date. So if it's your final project, obviously it's got to be done before the end of school. And then decide which of your tasks are sequential or parallel, so you can kind of condense your project and get it done as quickly as possible. So you want to try and group as many parallel projects as you can, so that way everybody always has something to do. So we decided, like, advertising for our chicken coop, that's a task. So if you're doing your chart and then you realize, oh, well, there's only 2 people can paint at a time and there's really nothing else to be done at that time. So all my other people, I'm going to have them start advertising. I'm going to have them start taking pictures of the project, kind of logging the progress of it, things like that. So at that point, you should have just a list of tasks, when you kind of expect to start, how long each task will take, whether it's sequential or parallel, and then if it's dependent on any task, you can see here we have these dependencies. So this task here, detail analysis of core modules, I can see here that it's sequential, meaning it has to start after something, and this has to start after task number 1, which is a high-level analysis. So at this point, you should have decided what your time frame is going to be on the top. So seconds, minutes, hours, weeks, months, years, decades, yeah, centuries.
BC.
There you go. Then just start plotting out your paper. And then any project's always going to run into some snags. So, I wouldn't say I want to have my paint, paint it the day before finals. So it's nice to give yourself a little bit of extra space at the end. And then if you need it, you can maybe have a little extra thing. So maybe, if time permits, you put a second coat of paint on it if that's not necessarily critical. So I usually like to kind of what they call pad the project a little bit at the end, just to either do some finishing touches. Maybe your client has a couple modifications that they've wanted to make along the way, or you ran into some problems. You go to the hardware store and they don't have wood that day, so they say, "Oh, we got a shipment coming in tomorrow," so now your whole project's delayed a day. All right, so just a couple questions here just to kind of think about, which we'll go through. So I guess you guys can read this. So looking at this Gantt chart, would you say the team is ahead of schedule, on schedule, or behind schedule? It's a little mix. You can see that they're ahead of schedule on evaluations, but you can see they're behind schedule in writing their reports. So, what task would be beginning today, if you can read that? How about you, Chris?
Dinner.
What?
We'll get back to Chris.
No.
Okay, so your assignment for today is to fill out the Gantt chart. What I want you to do is pick a simple task, and I just gave you an example here of brushing your teeth. So I want you to think of like 10 different things involved in brushing your teeth. So the task is not just brushing your teeth. There's, you need to arrive in your bathroom. You need to gather your toothbrush and toothpaste. You need to before you can actually brush your teeth, you need to put toothpaste on your toothbrush. You can, do you floss before or after? And then what I want you to do, what do you think would be a good time frame or unit of measure for brushing your teeth? Minutes. Some of your tasks are only going to take 5 or 6 seconds. So I'd probably break it up into maybe 5-second increments. So each little square in your Gantt chart can be 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So kind of plan out how long it would take you to do all those tasks. First you brush your front top teeth, and then back and bottom, and so it can be brushing your teeth, it can be something else. You can pick something that you want. But I want you to go the process from start to finish. So again, focus on all the tasks that are involved. Write them on a separate piece of paper. Actually, I want you to write them on the back in advance, or a separate sheet of paper. So list them all out, because as you're listing, you might realize, oh yeah, I forgot, before I put my toothbrush away, I'm going to rinse it off first. You don't want to have to redo your whole Gantt chart if you forget a task. So get all your tasks down first, then put them in order. So I usually just put numbers to put them in order. Decide if there's anything that can be done at the same time. So is there any part of brushing your teeth that you can do simultaneously? Then make sure you block out each section based on how much time it's going to take. So if I brush my front teeth for 30 seconds and I'm doing, say, 10-second increments, then I'm going to block out 3 whole sections there to complete that task. So any questions at all on how to fill out this Gantt chart? All right. Sequence. That's it. So again, this is a really useful tool, and if you're ever in a job situation, even a job interview, an employer is going to be extremely impressed that you know how to use this, can use it, and you'll find it's just an amazingly valuable tool to keep you on track. So even something as simple as you decide, hey, this weekend I'm going to clean out my room, or I'm going to clean my garage, or I'm going to apply for college, or I'm going to get a job. I mean, a great one for getting a job because there's a lot of tasks involved with that. And I want to get a job by summer. All right, well, realistically, I need to go to so many interviews. I need to create my resume, do all this stuff. So really figure out exactly what you need to do, when it needs to be done by. And then once you have your plan, it's easy to work, and you'll know if you're on time or not. All right, I look forward to getting all of your charts back.